And we're live. Well,
What?
welcome everybody. We're rounding down here. We're just at the start of Tuesday here. I don't know how many days are left. I think I said 6. We end on Sunday for Wes Johnson's Voice of Palooza for the Alzheimer's Association. We are at 18,000. What is that? 527. Which is just absolutely insane what this community has done in this amount of time. Just completely gobsmacked. We've raised the goalposts 6 times, and I'm hoping we can shoot for 20, which would make a real difference for the Alzheimer's Association. A few things before we get started here with some extra special guests. Tonight we're doing giveaways that we pulled on Monday. So Noble Chairs, our friends at Bethesda gave us a whole bunch of things to give away. Noble Chairs is giving away a Fallout, not this particular chair, Nuka-Cola branded chair. You can hit !Noble Chairs and enter into that giveaway. We're also giving away a 10th anniversary Skyrim chair from them. We also have ESO full game codes from Bethesda on all consoles, including the new High Isle DLC that they've dropped, and also Fallout 76 on Xbox and PS4. Oh, the music. Sorry about that. I realized that video. There we go. Now you should hear us better. The video that is your trailer that's playing in the bottom right-hand corner. I forgot to mute it. It's blaring this whole time. There we go. Yep. So Noble Chairs, and if you can, any small amount, $1, $5, will really go towards supporting Alzheimer's. Just hit !Charity. And with my spiel done, we're joined here by 2 really legendary developers in games that we know and love. Joel Burgess, studio director of Cappy Games, and Nate Purkeypile, founder of Just Perky Games. We're also joined by Alex, known as Xanthier. He's level designer and QA lead on Fallout 4 Point Lookout, a fan-made mod recreation of the Fallout 3 DLC Point Lookout. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Why don't we start out with Joel? Tell a little bit about your background, how you got started in gaming, and found your way to Bethesda and beyond, working on Fallout.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm a child of the '90s, so that's kind of when I started tinkering with like PC games and modding. My first mod was like a Duke Nukem 3D map, and I kind of fell in love with the build engine and started dabbling with like all the different engines that I could get my hands on. It's at the same time period that I played Daggerfall. Daggerfall had a huge impression on me in terms of like what was possible with game worlds. From modding, I got into a program in Central Florida, and I got my degree and learned a little bit about making games. And then I was whisked away to Dallas, Texas to work at a place called Terminal Reality, which is where I met Nate and a handful of other Bethesda or ex-Bethesda devs. So I worked there for a little bit, and then in 2005 I got the chance to jump onto the Oblivion team and start doing some level design for Oblivion, and then onwards to Fallout and other games from there.
That's awesome. Nate.
Yeah, mine is going to sound like weirdly similar because I was doing games even starting at like 3rd grade, sitting in the back of class programming on Apple IIs. For some reason they actually let me do that. But then I went through the Half-Life mod scene and stuff, worked on like Action Half-Life, then my own mod, Desert Crisis. And then I went to the Academy of Art, but I thought it was too fine arts focused for me, so I quit, worked on mods just for a year. And then I went to DigiPen, which was like way more focused on just games, and then applied to literally every game company that existed on the planet. And 2 of them said yes, and it was Ubisoft and Terminal Reality. And I was like, well, Canada's too cold for me, so let's go to
Not that
Texas.
cold. It's 81 degrees outside right now, man.
And like 145 pounds. Like, if it's even remotely cold, it is freezing for me. So I like Texas winters, which is to say not winter. That's my style. But yeah, then I ended up at Terminal Reality with Joel and everyone, and he ended up at Bethesda before me. So then I ended up, following him and Corey and some other people, and worked at Bethesda for 14 years.
Yeah,
Awesome.
man. When I got there and I saw some of the work that Adam was doing early days on Fallout 3,
Oh
like
man.
I think I called you, Nate, and I was like, you were born to work on this. Like you have to come.
Yeah, which is I think totally true because like in high school, my junior and senior projects were both on nuclear weapons. One was on like the history, and one was on just the physics. Like I was a huge Fallout fan growing up, so I was really excited to work on them.
I'm such a huge fan of Adam's concept art. Just the concepts that he came up with, even the first iterations that, didn't make it into the game, had such a really interesting take on what Fallout 3 could have been. It was kind of all kinds of really wild ideas. I'm particularly haunted by the alien gun that actually had a small alien inside that you would electrocute to shoot you. What?
I mean, that tracks.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird stuff is cool.
Came out of his pen.
Absolutely amazing. And then we're also joined by Alex. Alex, how did you get involved in the Capital Wasteland project?
Well, I'll take you back for 2 seconds to give you a little bit of my backstory. So
Yeah.
something I didn't realize was significant until I was thinking about it recently was that I got started with like modding and like sort of like amateur game dev, I guess, back in high school when my best friend showed me the UDK, which is the Unreal Development Kit. I don't recall if it was for Unreal 2 or 3, but I was just messing with that. Like, I think I messed with Speed Tree, trying to like create trees and stuff and like levels and stuff. And so that kind of like ignited something that I didn't realize up until I think 2017, which is when I first like happened upon the Capital Wasteland project, which was founded by NafNaf95. I don't know if he wants me to say his real name, so I'll just stick with that. But so I happened upon that and I was like, something clicked. I was like, well, Fallout 3 is like my favorite game, and these guys are remaking Fallout 3, so that sounds really intriguing. So I was like, how would I do that? So looked into the creation kit, just downloaded it, started messing with it, like had no idea how the camera controls worked at all because I just couldn't wrap my head around it for a while. And then basically just did that, submitted some stuff. I joined the team, became a level designer. I've since done some 3D art stuff as well. And basically, yeah, that's kind of how I got my start there.
That's awesome. Well, I want to. What I thought would be fun is we'll start out taking both Nate and Joel back in time a little bit to June 23rd, 2009. Almost 13 years ago this month, Point Lookout, the fourth DLC developed and published by Bethesda Softworks for Fallout 3, was launched on Xbox Live and Games for Windows Live. It would be dropped in the PlayStation Store that fall. Originally a 370 megabyte DLC pack, it takes us to the Fallout universe equivalent of the Point Lookout State Park region on the southwestern spot on Maryland's western shore of the Chesapeake Bay. Let's take a look back at the original 2009 trailer for the Fallout 3 DLC.
You are not welcome in this place.
How weird is it that 13 years went by so fast?
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's and that particular DLC for me, it was the first DLC I played, which is why I'm really excited to be with you guys here today, because in comparison to the base game, that had such a different horror vibe. with the creepy inbred cannibals and the the whole thing. How did so taking us back to 2008, 2009? How did Point Lookout come about, as far as an idea and concept for DLC?
I mean, what I remember is that we had like this whole list of pitches because we knew it was going to be me and Joel, but what the specific DLC was sort of up in the air. So we just listed a whole bunch of ideas to see like what Todd and everybody else would actually, bite on. And this was the idea that resonated with them the most. So, it was many years later that I got my Crash space station, but that was actually originally when I pitched it was back then.
Oh, the Crash space station for Fallout 76, you mean?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Point Lookout was like, it was a bit of an idea gumbo because so Point Lookout wasn't like some other DLCs where we had been thinking and dreaming about it for like months or years, right? Like my memory of this is we were post launch on Fallout 3 and we had like our slate of DLCs and Skyrim was actually in pre-production at that stage. And I don't remember the details, but I had some beef, right? Like I had some axe to grind with like something to do with how Skyrim was going super early on. And so like I went into the studio head's office expecting to kind of like sit down, like we're going to serious talk about. And he's like, "Oh, hey, I was just about to call you in. Like, I think we should do another DLC on the schedule. What would you and Perky want to do?" And it's like the Skyrim beef like went out, like it never came up, right? It never came up either. It's like
Placated.
Yeah, because I mean I think it was like a Wednesday, right? And he's like, like come back on Friday and pitch. So like I turned around, went right back to Perky's desk, and we sat down. We started just like going like, well, what would we want to do? And like, I am kind of like by lineage from the South, and Perky's from the Northwest, but we're both pretty familiar with
the deep woods. That's where I'm from. Yeah.
Yeah, we're both familiar with lifestyle outside of the cities. Let's say that. And
row faster, I hear banjos.
Yeah, so we just sort of laying down this Venn diagram of things that we really like thought were interesting, and like the big task with DLC, right, is how do you take something that players will have spent dozens or hundreds of hours in and find a way to make that fresh without like making a whole new game. So that's really what drove it, a lot of it, right? Is like we had constraints that we were really interested in, and we had ideas that we were really interested in, and those two sort of gearheads hit each other, and Point Lookout came out.
Interesting. The what about some of the particular quests that you started putting out? How did that process come about? So when you put together the Black Hall quest, Plick, was that from that initial pitch that you both kind of picked around, or did you develop the quests as you went along?
I think Black Hall and all that stuff kind of came as we went. Obviously, like to say that Point Lookout is Perky and I would be a gross like injustice against the team, right? So as we started working with more folks and became more clear like who the Point Lookout team was that we could collaborate with, a lot of the quests shook out of like I think it was Fred and Eric we were working with on the quest side. So we had some ideas, like we knew that we wanted to revisit the Dunwich Horror.
That's
we
awesome.
had some various like points of interest that we were interested in, and Nate and I are very world first people, so we kind of knew like points of interest and like key locations that we were excited about, and then like we're working with like Fred and Eric on quest and story stuff to try and weave those in. So like the mansion and the boardwalk and the internment camp and all these things started to kind of shake out of that creative process. But I think like the whole storyline, like the central storyline, I think really was like maybe a 70-30 split, with us like being the 30% influence onto I think it was Eric that did the main story for Point Lookout.
Yeah, we just kind of had guiding it, I would say.
Yeah. How long did it take you to develop?
It was like 4 months, I think, right?
4 months? Good Lord.
Yeah.
I
mean, at that point, the tools are like mature.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we had literally no code support, in fact. So you just have like this code base that you've been working with for a long time. So we got pretty good at making stuff fast. And so we made stuff fast.
That is
It's a
crazy.
big part of why the file size was so low, right?
Yeah.
It's not actually that much new stuff.
Yeah, because it's all instantiation. Dude, I remember back on Oblivion when Jeff and I did Mayrunes, and Mayrunes Razor came out, which was like me and one other level designer for the entire DLC. And then of course QA and everything. But on content side, no new code, no new art, no new dialogue. It was just two level designers, like building on a piece of content. And that DLC, I think, was under a meg. And like a bunch of people were like, oh man, like what a ripoff, this thing is. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's also like, like 20 hours ago.
Biggest dungeon by far.
Yeah. So like with Point Lookout, right? Like we had new dialogue, we had new models and artwork and all that, but it wasn't like an enormous amount of content on disk. It was a relatively small download. But that also meant that like we didn't have a whole bunch of code and artwork that was blocking us, right? Like Fallout 3. And then, we were able to like really.
Did we lose you? Oh, we lost you for a second. There you are.
Sorry.
No worries. The early concepts and drafts that you had, how much did it differ? Because I mean, in that short a window, 4 months, there's probably not a lot of stuff that you end up canceling or changing around too much, I would imagine, unless you did it early on.
No, I feel like it's pretty direct, and it's more of just like where it steers to end up being, like that quest line not necessarily knowing what it is and it becomes something, but it wasn't like there was this whole other thing like, well, that didn't work, cut it. Like frankly, we didn't have time for that, so you just kind of have to march forward and finish it and ship it.
Where you guys are so world first, you said, are there things that you built or locations that you built in the game that you wish that there had been a quest that just kind of exist, or vice versa? Did you create a space that you thought this would be so cool to do, and then you have to try and think of how you can build that spot into a quest?
I feel like we did better in Point Lookout than some things. Like I would say Point Lookout probably is more successful than 76, for instance. Like at Ship, there was some probably more notable locations in 76 that were not really utilized for much until like way later.
Yeah, like now where you have dailies and a reason to actually go there.
Yeah, because Point Lookout's not that big, so you kind of know what those locations are, so it's not that hard to weave the quests into that.
And that too, with that short a window, did you have concept art, or do you just really dive in and start building? Or is it you two like on napkins at Denny's at 2 a.m.?
Yeah, the only concept art that we had was for the Swamp Folk, because that one was getting outsourced, and the concepts even were from an outsourcing firm.
Oh wow!
It's like all that bandwidth was on Skyrim. So for the world itself, though, like the look of the trees, I just found a cool picture of trees, and most of the other things are like that. We've found cool looking things online as sort of reference touch points and extrapolated from there. But that was also pretty common back then, because I think at the time only had 2 concept artists total, even in the company. So most of the stuff I worked on, I didn't have concepts for. Like sometimes I would, like Paradise Falls or Little Lamplight, that had concepts, but tons of stuff you just didn't. So it's kind of used to it at that point.
Do either of you prefer having concept art to kind of guide, or do you enjoy just kind of going freeform and coming up with something?
I mean, I think I like to just come up with my own stuff, but that's also probably why I'm a solo indie dev now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, this is actually a good segue, because the next question I wanted to ask you about was actually about the boardwalk area. And before we actually dive in game here with Alex, I want everyone to take a look at the trailer that they created for the Fallout 4 DLC that they've created for Point Lookout, which is exceptional.
Oh, when the sun beats down and burns the tar up on the roof, and your shoes get so hot, you wish your tired feet were fireproof. Under the boardwalk, down by the sea, yeah, on a blanket with my baby's where I'll be. Under the boardwalk, out of the sun. Under the boardwalk, we'll be having some fun. Under the boardwalk, people walking above. Under the boardwalk, we'll be making love. under the boardwalk, boardwalk. You should have stayed home, boy.
And that coming soon actually is now. It's available right now on the Nexus. Let's actually hop over and let's check out what the team has been making. And I'm going to switch our view here to speaker. Alex, take it away.
All right. So I've pre-prepped some segments for us, just cut out some unnecessary like walking, questing, leveling stuff. So meet Velma. So I named her that because one of the locations is called Velma's Biker Bar, but it's, even though it's not called that in game, but it is in the files. So that's just a little nod to that. And so basically when you leave Vault 111, you'll get a pop-up just like in Fallout 3 where it says like, hey, there's a cool riverboat, you should go check it out. And it points you here. And so we'll get started.
Are you going to Point Lookout? I need your help. My daughter stowed away on the Duchess Gambit a few weeks ago, and I've been worried sick ever since. I haven't heard anything from her. But if you're going there, could you look for her? Please. I'll do anything to help.
I'll look for her. I think safe to say we will. We'll try.
I'm kind of busy.
Stream's over.
Well, that's all the time we have.
Change my mind.
She is. Dr. Tobar said he dropped her off at Point Lookout, but who knows what's happened to her since then. I don't know if you can convince my little Nadine
Say
to
again?
come back.
You cut out there for sexual.
Give her this note from me, would you?
Helping her. No, I was asking Perky if you remember who Tobar was based on.
Oh.
Welcome, my friend.
Isn't it the guy from, oh God, what's the band? Gogol Bordello?
Yeah, I just remembered that.
I forgot about
Really?
that. Yeah.
Wait, is
Yeah,
that from Fable?
No, it's a band, like a gypsy
Oh,
punk band that is
Gotcha.
awesome.
That's awesome.
A gypsy punk band? That's a
Yes.
genre? All right, well,
It is. I don't know if anybody else is in that genre, but them. But
there's just one album in the Spotify listing and it's them.
they put on a great show.
That's awesome.
But keep your wits about you, because there's more than a few exotic critters and inhospitable locals. So stay here if you're too dainty to rough it. Down south, this side
Just
of the bay,
chat to
there's a
Tobar, get our
big
ticket, and
village
get started.
called Point Lookout. Oh, it's got it all. Ruins of ancient pleasure towns.
Even though the voice actors aren't like super spot on to the actual character, I think our voice actors did a really fantastic job. We got some really great performances. So
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Ship is pretty spot on too. Like, I made that original ship.
yeah, our lead artist is really talented and he did a great job on a lot of stuff. So
This must be really surreal for you guys to see something that you worked on, 13 years ago now, being so loved by a modding community that they're committing literally years of their lives to recreating the whole game, much less this DLC. That's gotta be weird.
Yeah, gotta say, I did not expect that when we made it or anything. Be like, oh yeah, we just put this thing out and there we go. It's off into the wind.
No, I was like consistently floored. So I was like, I had the honor to be invited to like just hang out in this team Discord over the last handful of months while they were working on it. And like, I think one of the things that's really impressed me is like, I would like see screenshots or bits of footage come through and like, I would forget that it was the mod, right? And it's just like, I was, like it looks so natural and like, you forget like, oh yeah, if you put it next to Fallout 3, you realize like, oh, it looks better and this and that. But like, it's just, I honestly, it's one of those things where it's surreal enough. I almost don't even know how to feel or engage with it because it's just very special.
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
Definitely. It's definitely like that because you're just used to how Fallout 4 looks now. Like, oh yeah, it has like shadows. Like, oh yeah, Fallout 3 didn't.
Yeah.
Nate, I remember when we were talking on the Robots Radio podcast, you were talking about how lighting used to be in comparison to how it is now in 76. For anyone here who didn't hear that, what was it like to light Fallout 3?
It was very restrictive back then because the way the renderer worked was completely different. Like you could barely ever afford any shadows or anything like that, but also like you could only have a light source touch a certain number of things. It was like if you got more than like 5 things getting hit by a light, like 5 lights hitting something, it would just go black.
Yeah.
So it was, you could had very, very few light sources at all. And it wasn't until like Fallout 4 that you could put a lot of them. But even then in Fallout 4, like there's no bounce light like in 76. Like in 76, if you shine a spotlight at the floor, it will just bounce light into the room and propagate around. But in Fallout 4, all of that bounce light is done by hand. So that was me literally copying thousands of lights around individually. So it's pretty big spectrum of tech there on how that stuff works across the games.
And so here's our intro sequence.
I remember 13 years ago when I first played this felt like such a cool step out moment where you're cruising up on it and you see the mansion and the lighthouse and the boardwalk and it's all just kind of like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah, we definitely iterated on exactly what to show in that.
Yeah.
I'm so pleased to see the one swamp folk on that hill because like that mother
that
like,
was intentional.
Oh, I know. It was a nightmare to keep that guy on point. Look out. So yeah, I appreciate y'all got that in.
Yeah, so one thing, a fun and not fun tidbit that we learned after we released actually is that when you guys made Far Harbor, you actually included the original, this intro riff. You included that. Oh, I've got a little camera issue. Don't worry about that. But so you included that intro riff from Point Lookout in Far Harbor's files, but we only discovered that after our musicians had remade it. So we decided to keep our version. But had we known, we probably would have used that as well.
I didn't realize they did that.
Yeah, it's still in there to this day.
I barely worked on Far Harbor actually, since I was mostly on 76 at that point. But I do always kind of think of it as Point Lookout too.
I was gonna ask you guys that because thematically, as far as like atmosphere and the feel of the space is very much like a spiritual precursor to Fallout for Far Harbor, which fans really love. And a lot of lists, they constantly ranked the #1 most beloved DLC. But you can see how much of Point Lookout kind of shapes Far Harbor as far as that feel and the fog and the...
Yeah, it even has other elements that are kind of similar with like the high-tech undertones to the whole thing too.
Yeah.
I said Point Lookout was perfect for treasure hunters, but it is a rare day when you get a beacon like that. Good travels to you.
Alex, you
I'm
had...
so used to...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to say, you have some questions here on the boardwalk about some cut cells that you guys found.
Yes. So, if I recall correctly, it's a cafe and a diner, I think. Our lead designer's probably ripping his hair out because I'm wrong. But there were some cut cells, and I think they were going to be used for the boardwalk. And I was wondering if you guys remember those at all, because there is one cut cell that was marked as cut, because I think back then you guys marked them as like ZZ, which is the warehouse, but that one made it in. But the like cafe, and there's another one that escapes me right now. It might be just like an abandoned like room or something.
Yeah, I mean the boardwalk, it's one of those locations that's a bit elastic, right? Like you could put 2 locations in the boardwalk because of like the way the architecture works. So I think we just had like hoped to put a lot more. Do you guys know what I mean when I see a Z cell? I realize it's just a weird, meaningless term that we used for Z, not ZZ cells. That's different. The Z cells.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I mean, I guess for viewers who don't spend hundreds of hours in Bethesda tools, a Z cell in Fallout was like a thing for, like if a dungeon is, this is like whatever, like Bobby's Slay and Flay. That's a dungeon name. Where it's like cafe or outhouse, like that's a Z cell. So it's like it's meant to be there to fill out the space, but not necessarily to have like a bunch of story or identity. So I think we had hoped to put a bunch of Z cells throughout the boardwalk, and that was one of the things that we ended up cutting just for time.
Gotcha. So real quick, I'm just going to get us a little bit of gear just so that we have the tools we need to succeed. So we'll come up to the motel here where we will meet my favorite 3 dogs who I've killed thousands of times.
So many times.
Oh, here they are. One thing I don't think enough people notice is the free breakfast, pointing to this mole rat. And this mole rat also did not always cooperate with us. He loved to just disappear, not die, and other things. So
Yeah.
I love those random Easter eggs in Fallout games. They're such a part of the experience where there's just some random nonsense that you walk in on with
It's totally
skeletons
us
or
just
corpses.
entertaining ourselves as we build stuff. Like, you know, it would be funny if,
Like the plunger room.
yes,
I love-
that used to be along the main quest, by the way, and they made me move it.
Oh,
It's like, okay, maybe that's a little too dumb for everyone to see.
well, you got to keep the fuck you door.
I think the
Sure
FU
it is.
door was Joel, right?
Oh, was it Joel?
It was
Yeah.
Justin, wasn't it? Or was it you?
No, well, gosh, was it Justin or Darrell? The solution was mine. The location was like we forgot to assign the location, and so we were like all gathered. We were panicking, right? Like we're all gathered around Darrell or Justin's monitor. Like, what are we gonna do? We can copy the cell. No, we shouldn't copy and paste the thing. And it was like, all right, try this. Just put the words "fuck you" behind the door. We're
Yeah.
done. Everybody go home early.
Which existed because I made that for some other like trashed vault. So we already had that decal in there.
That's awesome.
The beauties of a mature rating.
All right, so here we're gonna head up. I think
Oh, no.
I'm gonna grab a mini nuke because we'll need that later. But then we'll head up to the mansion and begin that fun stuff.
Motel comes back as part of the Velvet Curtain, right?
Yes. So you start the quest there, and you return to it later to get some more stuff.
I hate
I don't
bloat
know why I'm telling
flies
you. You
so
of course know
much.
this.
Oh, the
That's what I
baby
know.
carriages.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so our lead designer had a lot of fun recreating these.
Yep.
Oh.
Got some air on that
Oh,
one.
humor for you.
Were those scripted or were those just like a landmine and a trigger inside, like we just dropped in?
The way we made them, you mean? Or the
Forgot
way
about
you
this
guys
stuff.
made them?
Well, either and both, honestly.
I know they're scripted. I'm pretty sure they're scripted almost the same as they were in 3. So it's just like a placeable activator. Or I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't exactly recall how he made them, but
Yeah.
and this room is fun because there's a lot of them and you don't know which ones are which.
I do know that this baby carriage, when I went back and started replaying Fallout 3 recently, I forgot about them. And that crying baby noise with the,
Oh,
yep, just like that. And I'm like, nope,
oh great. Nope. My worst
nope,
nightmare.
nope. Well,
I think I would just like throw a grenade into here.
Yeah.
ow.
Okay, we should be safe. I just wanted. There it is. All right, we got what we came for. Let's get out of here.
It's nice being able to forward more of those like mist particles and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms
Yeah,
of,
actually.
oh, go ahead.
So I was gonna say, I actually went through and relit a few of our levels because they weren't quite how we wanted them, and so I actually used a lot of the same tricks. I assume you lit all the levels in Point Lookout, and so I used a lot of the same tricks that you did, and even like replicated the same lights too.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty fun.
I'm assuming those tricks are like glow fills.
Basically,
mists.
yeah. All right.
As far as building with kits, that's I'd watched the video a while back about the talk that you and Joel had done, explaining how you guys build kits that you then give to level designers as far as building stuff out. Do you want to explain a little bit about how that goes, about creating kits for Point Lookout or for Fallout 3 to then build around?
Yeah, I mean, Joel is the one who's like the end user, I suppose, him and all the other level designers. So I'm kind of like the Lego creator for them, trying to come up with a system. And my goal was always what can I do to make it look really good, but also not have all the dungeons look the same, has always been one of the things that I wanted to push forward as much as possible. So you definitely end up bending the rules a little bit there to have that extra flexibility in layout. But it's sort of a dialogue, I think, between level designers and art for how that all works. So it's definitely very collaborative.
Yeah, I remember at the conference you were talking about, and I felt it in certain games, like Dragon Age 2, for me, even though the story is great, it's one of the games that I felt level fatigue because the city has all of the same looking streets, so it all just kind of blends together. And in that conference, you guys were talking about how giving them variety to create the spaces look not all exactly the same, so they can tweak things here or there. That way you don't get tired of going back to it.
Yeah, I think Fallout 3, you can see how stuff was a lot more locked down than 4, for example. Like the building kit in 4 is one of the things I worked on. And instead of it being like, here's a hallway piece, instead it was like, here's your walls, here's your floors, here's your ceilings. And then you could like mix those materials to have brick walls here and wood on the floor, or wallpaper, and then punch holes through it wherever, and even move those walls independently to have like curved hallways if you place enough pillars to cover up all the terrible intersections that happen. So it was sort of exploding all the kits over time, which frankly puts a lot more burden on level designers to actually work with all those pieces, but then they can do a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, and in Fallout 4, we had prefabbed a bunch of those more granular pieces together to recreate a Fallout 3 style kit. So you could still, as an LD, like chunk together halls and rooms really quickly to sort of like sketch out the shape of the level. But then you could go in and blow them up into these more granular pieces. Because like what we always found, and like this is pretty pronounced in Oblivion, is like human brain, it's the opposite of what you think, right? Human brains don't pick up on big architectural patterns repeated. They pick up on small patterns that are repeated. Right, and so that's, I think, where some games struggle, is they have like a bunch of unique rooms, but they don't have a bunch of unique like joining details and clutter arrangements.
So here we are at the mansion sequence, which is probably like the most noteworthy and like remembered sequence, and I'm sure you guys remember it.
Oh yeah,
maybe not fondly, but
it wasn't. It's no Skyrim cart sequence, that's for sure. It was a lot quicker and easier to do. It was fun to build a more scripted space, though. It's less, open than some of the other ones, and has like those fall throughs.
All right. And then, of course, the most beloved Point Lookout character,
Desmond. I loved the design of this mansion. And fending off the Horde later is one of my all-time favorite Horde defend events I've ever done in Fallout.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the level designer who did the actual sequence here in the mansion, his most recent, and let's just try and make like a good action sequence.
Oh, we lost you. Yep, there you are. Now, later on, Nate, when this mansion explodes, which I don't know if we'll get to here, but that is an incredibly memorable part of the game. How did you create that effect?
Grant is the one who actually made the actual effect, but the way it works is like the most counterintuitive thing you'll ever hear, because there's no way for us to actually toggle distant stuff in the Fallout games back then. Like, it was just distant buildings. That's all there is. You can't turn one on or off. So the only similar thing, though, that's related was distant explosions, like, the megaton explosion.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, the mansion itself is an explosion at all times, and it's slowly shrinking on itself and then spawning a new one. And then after the mansion actually explodes, that fake explosion that was just a mansion is then turned off. So it takes a second to wrap your brain around. But yeah, we used the explosion tech to show a house that then gets turned off.
Hashtag explosion tech. And thank you very much for the donations, everybody, so far. Thank you.
That's what happens when you have no code support.
There's also an aviary of dead birds. What's going on there?
So Todd Howard might hate for me for saying this, but basically he hates birds and is maybe, a little bit afraid of them. So I was like, hey, I'm going to put an aviary full of dead birds just to see what Todd says when he sees all these dead birds.
That's awesome.
He didn't make me cut it.
That's good, Dad.
So also, as with the original point lookout, the shotgun is easily the best weapon.
I love using shotguns.
Good for close quarters.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of the weapon choices are about us trying to like spotlight guns that were underused in the base game, both to like get more mileage out of them and like make the DLC feel fresh.
Also a shovel.
Yes,
We
the
repurposed
satisfying
melee weapons.
thonk of a shovel. I love that.
Yeah, I think that definitely got on the list purely to have that sound. Dong.
I mean, the goofier the weapon are the ones I enjoy the most. Like even in 76, the drill or the chainsaw, or even the guitar sword.
Yep. All those instrument weapons are ones that I made as a game jam and then put in.
They're so hilarious when you kill something and it's a festive noise.
Was it Point Lookout, Nate, or am I thinking of Oblivion, where like a bunch of those, like the axe and the shovel, those were just animation props, and they weren't actually set up as weapons. We were like yoink, and we took that like mesh and turned it into a weapon.
Yeah, I think that was Oblivion, because couldn't you do that with like the fork and knife? like eating forks? Yeah.
That was Skyrim, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think we had the animations in Oblivion for that, but definitely like
Okay.
the gardening equipment in Oblivion. I remember hooking those up as weapons, even though they weren't meant to be.
It's definitely easier to do with melee weapons than a gun. You don't have to like set up a whole receiver animating or anything. Just put it in the hands. Poke, poke.
So level design and lighting, there's a separation there. What are some of the advantages to separating the workflow that way? Does a lighting artist work from designer's notes, or do you kind of have free reign to light the level the way you want to?
No, usually I would talk to level designers and be like, what are the important things that I should highlight in case I missed it, and go back and forth. And it's not done for any like real reason other than different people have different skill sets. And like I was one of the main people that lights, and there's a whole team of level designers. So it ended up falling on me. But I also do level design sometimes, like, Diamond City, for instance. I did the level design and the lighting and all the art for it. But I can't do as many levels as the entire level design team.
They're passion projects.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things, like with a small team, you figure out what can be done by somebody else, and if they can do it better and faster, then like you move that over. So rather than have a bunch of level designers who didn't like have a really good grasp on lighting theory, like Nate being able to take over that meant they could spend more time on like, scripting sequences of events and like doing level design layout. Man, this fall.
This animation I loved. I think this, and then in Fallout 3, just after you grab the FEV, not the FEV, the good lord, Garden of Eden creation kit. When there's that animation of you kind of falling down to the ground, it's kind of a unique moment in the games, falling through the floor here, and then when you fall down there.
Yeah, there's very few times that happens. I think it was even like up for debate a little bit, like, oh, should we take control from the player? It's like, well, we're not going to guarantee they actually fall through the hole, especially with the way physics works. So this is the most reliable way to do it.
I know about how unreliable it is because ours doesn't always quite work. So we had to build in a failsafe that just teleports you down in the event it doesn't. So
Not surprised.
Yeah, that you say I think it might have been a debate. It was a religious war, man. It was a huge deal to take control away to create that moment.
You probably had to deal with that more than I did. Off in art lands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there anything that was cut from Point Lookout that you were happy was cut? Or anything that you were unhappy that was cut?
I mean, there wasn't a lot of fat on that cut of meat, man. Like it was a short dev cycle. So it really felt like everything that we could possibly get in, we got in. So yeah, I was trying to think of like what we would cut and like some of the unfinished cells and things.
What about a favorite bug? Do you have a favorite bug? Either in Point Lookout or Fallout 3.
I mean, Alex and the rest of the mod team could probably relate to this, but the muck bubbles in Point Lookout are way too complex in the most wonderful way, right? Like those things are physics objects that spawn up out, and then they can be picked up and moved around, and when they explode, they do this gas volume thing that's flammable. So we got all kinds of wild bugs, just trying to settle those things down and make them work. So I just remember like trying to create like, you know, fields of muck bubbles like basketballs and then just like detonate them all and like just watch swamp folk fly into the stratosphere. So yeah, those were a blessing and a curse.
I mean, my favorite is when they would spawn forever, like hundreds of them.
Yeah,
we actually ran into that exact issue, is when after you loaded an area that had one that spawned, when you entered an interior, then they would just spawn infinitely while you were in the interior. So when you came out, there were just thousands of them, and your FPS just tanked down to nothing.
You have to blow them up then, just to see what happens.
Yeah, it was a crash. A crash is what happens. But so also, it'd be remiss of me not to show this off that our lead artist did.
Oh.
So we'll continue on, and then we'll get to the final wave sequence.
The fried turkey saying, me and Grill spent like a week trying to get them working in chat. Some of the screenshots I have of that legit gives a nuke force explosion. You'd made a comment that you ended up with more enemies at times than you anticipated on. What happened there?
Well, more enemies like on the screen, or more that were actually in the DLC than we were supposed to have actually
Yeah, in
made?
the DLC, yeah.
Yeah, because I think we were supposed to only have one, and then outsourcing accidentally made all of them, basically. Joel can maybe correct me if I got any of that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was like, whoops. Single tear from Perky.
Honestly, I wish I'd done this on purpose. Thinking back, it definitely seems like a scheme that I was running. We knew we were probably only going to get one swamp folk, and we wanted, right? So we basically said like, okay, well, let's have, because we did very little outsourcing, right? So like this was sort of like an experiment for us almost to do the outsourcing support. So it's like, since we're not really sure which size we want, let's kind of have them do like a small, medium, and large, and then we'll pick one. And that baton got handed off, and it never got handed back until all three of them. So we had received like the paintings or whatever. We were like, I don't know, maybe we should do the big guy, maybe we should do the little guy. A few later, like all three of them showed up. I was like,
okay.
So it's like getting extra pizza. You can't return it to the store, right? So like we just had three guys, and I assume we paid for three guys. But hey, I don't know. What's my problem?
If it was an expensive accident, it was a welcome one, because for me, the creepy ass hillbillies in this game made this entire DLC so terrifying, because they are just so, like, especially the big tanky one and the creepy, like, emaciated bellies, small, like, yeah, they're just terrifying looking.
Yeah, I think it ends up being a much better DLC. That way it feels more fleshed out. But, you know, then people ask like, oh, why was there not women hillfolk? It's like, well, because we weren't even supposed to have more than one. That's why. It wasn't even. If we were going to do more, sure, we would have done that.
Yeah, someone in chat had asked that question earlier. Well, there's your answer. And also, word on the street, Joel, is that you have a harmonica that plays in a strange key.
Yeah. Yeah, we were really trying to figure out how to like nail the vibe of the overall DLC. And so we talked a lot about like, you know, like music and culture and like what the vibe should be. And one of the things that I thought to do was like get that sort of like, you know, an off key. And so what I did was I drove down to the music shop one afternoon while we were on Point Lookout, and I have it around somewhere too, but I think it was a G minor or G sharp minor 7th. So like it's an odd scale of harmonica. And I would just keep that thing at my desk and just like start playing tunes on it, which is probably the most obnoxious thing you could do in an office.
Game development.
Yeah, but like I still have that thing around because it's like it's such an unusual key, but it instantly sets like a tone. I had hoped to do like some harmonica music for the DLC, but we never really had time to get to it.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
So this is what I got that mini new for, because I've played this mod before.
Yeah, I like your problem solving.
I sometimes forget, until I started playing Fallout 3 again, how completely devastating the Fat Man used to be in terms of the explosion radius and even the damage it does. I ragdolled myself so many times when I started replaying recently, in comparison to like how the mini nuke actually works in 76.
Yeah, I like that nice heavy feel to it. It's pretty satisfying.
I mean, I think in Fallout 3 there are only supposed to be like a dozen nukes in the whole world, right? Like the more nukes that got out there, the weaker the thing had to get.
So that's the mansion sequence done. Do we have time? Do we want to skip to a different section just so in the interest of time?
Yeah, go for it. Up to you.
All right. Well, I think the other one, the big one, is probably the bog sequence.
Yes.
We did do a few changes in there that might interest you guys, so we can skip over to that.
Yeah, partially to shout out and partially to remember. This was Jesse, right? Did most of the bog sequence? Jesse Tucker?
Honestly, I don't remember, so you're probably right.
I think it's Jesse's work, yeah.
Oh, someone has a question you guys might know the answer to. This is a good one, and I forgot to put it on here. Desmond refers to a great game that he's in with Professor Calvert. What is that?
It's just sort of spy talk, right? So it's just a reference to the idea that there's sort of like, you know, these machinations that are invisible, and even the like the Velvet Curtain, and which is a reference to like the Iron Curtain in the Cold War.
Yeah.
So it's just that idea that like statecraft and spy work and all that. It's just meant to invoke that vibe.
There he is. So our lead artist also added the frogs from 76. He
Oh,
remade them.
that's
And we
awesome.
added them to Point Lookout.
Nice.
I love those little things.
And then he also created fireflies, which
Oh,
are
nice.
sort of a mix between the 76 fireflies and the Skyrim torch bugs.
Oh, cool. That is awesome.
Created those as well.
Oh, this using the critter system.
I can't say enough about our lead artist. He's fantastic. He's extremely talented.
The most dangerous game, Oyster.
So I did have a question about this interior for you guys, which is the bog entrance. We were never sure why it existed because all it does is connect the two world spaces. Do you guys recall?
Isn't it, Joel, that we couldn't load world space to world space? So we had to go interior to world space.
Oh, is that why?
For some totally random tech reason.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think it was as simple as that. It was just it was like doing paperwork. We just had to fill out that step.
As far as levels go,
that's it.
like how do you decide whether you want to use a level or create a different version? So the Sea Cave, which you might see a little later, there's a few different versions of it. So we're curious what your criteria was there. in terms of choosing which to take.
Is the Sea Cave Plix thing?
No, the Sea
It's
Cave
the
is
one with all the
main
coffins
quest.
and stuff.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we just picked the layout that we liked the most. Like, I don't even remember what was different about them at this point. Sometimes we just duplicate stuff off and do some changes and then keep which one is the best.
Yeah, probably more an indecisive level designer than anything else right there.
Oh, someone had a good question too. The rag dolls. What's up with the rag dolls? Is there a meaning to them, or is it just something like, let's put creepy dolls hanging from the trees?
Yeah.
Had the Blair Witch come out by then? I can't. How long ago was?
I don't remember if it had it. Maybe it did.
It feels
but
like
it
a
was
Blair
just
Witch
to have
thing.
that kind of creepy, sort of culty thing.
like
Dolls
that.
are scary.
That's super creepy. No, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think dolls are terrifying, so got added to the art list.
Perfect.
I think that didn't this come out the same year that we camped in the Blair Witch cabin?
Wait, what?
Yeah, we would like camped out in Burkettsville.
You
Yeah.
too?
Yeah.
Oh, why? No. What?
What's the worst that could happen?
It was an accident, remember?
Whose
Like,
idea was it?
No.
Didn't we find out once we got there or something?
Yeah, we were booking.
It's like that name sounds familiar.
I don't know. I'd never seen it. I'm not a big horror fan, which might surprise people that I worked on this, but like we were trying to book a cabin through the state and like everything was booked up, but there was this one cabin that was available in October and it was like Halloween weekend. And we're like, yeah, great, just grab it.
No.
And yeah, we found out after we had booked it that the reason it was vacant was because it was the Blair Witch like shooting had happened in the woods there, and nobody else wanted it.
That's exactly why you should go, though. Come on.
Yeah, in retrospect, it's surprising it was available.
Nate's like, hey, Joel, unearthly horrors. Want to go poke it with a stick?
Let's go on a horror tour. Like, find some Texas Chainsaw Massacre locations. Let's hit them all up.
Yeah, the only scary thing was your snoring, dude.
My snoring. That was Dane.
It
I
was
had
me,
to put
too.
in.
I'm gonna just finagle with the time just to give us a little better light. There
Yeah.
we go.
Ah, the great
Yes.
punga. So this is a really weird shaped plant. Where did this come from, the punga?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of in the same vein as a harmonica, where like I would just occasionally get like, oh, I'm gonna have this thing in the studio as like sort of an inspiration. And so I just like went to a produce market and I picked up a Buddha's hand, right, which is this type of lemon that has like these sort of tentacly like tips on it. So like you could just Google like Buddha's hand lemon or whatever. And so I just had one or two of those in the office, and that ended up becoming the reference. So when you see it next to this, right, you realize like it's pretty direct. Oh god,
So-
Phil and the Schmaltech.
So one thing about this sequence that some people don't know, and maybe you guys can inform a bit as to this, is that Tobar is actually supposed to speak to you during this sequence while you're walking here, which is what we're going to see now, is he's speaking to us. But in the Fallout 3 version, we don't know if you guys chose to cut it or just didn't fix it, or it just didn't work correctly or something. But in Fallout 3, you don't actually hear him, even though he is speaking the lines, because he's technically Mr. Break. But you can't hear him because I think it wasn't set up correctly, or maybe it broke or some such.
I think it broke, right? Because the shtick here is that you are having like this is all happening while he's operating on your piece, doing brain surgery on you.
Yeah, this is a pretty unsettling fever dream. Whose idea was this, and is everything okay at home?
I think it was mine.
Yeah, I don't think it was mine. So surprisingly.
Oh yeah, there's the bone saw, right? So this is him
It's so
going into
creepy.
your skull. So, like that's the thing is right. Like these things are happening to you for real, and then in your sort of like fevered state, you're interpreting them. And so yeah, that's little. And then of course like Jesse, right? Like one of our level designers implemented all this stuff.
It's
Or
so-
maybe Phil did the hallucination. There's definitely some Phil vibes in here. Like the Schmaltech is very Phil.
This is a good example, though, of why that file size is small. It's like this is all level designers leveraging stuff that we have in interesting ways. I remember those guys would
so
like
weird.
not actually despawn sometimes when we work on it, and you'd like keep getting hurt and stuff. That I remember that being fairly buggy for a while.
This is another thing not many people notice, is that these dolls actually point the way.
Yes.
Oh. Oh no. What?
See, that's
Okay,
why they're in
I
there.
never noticed that in the first one. It's probably because I ran by them. Hey, Loopy. This whole sequence was super creative. Yeah, especially the, yeah, what?
Yeah, gotta sew it back up.
Stitching your head back together. I remember like we're trying to think of like how to make you really angry at Tobar, right? Especially because he's like sort of like this charming, you know, like scoundrel type character, and because you can steal your brain back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I figure like nothing will piss you off more with like a DLC villain than he actually took a chunk of your head and you can get it back from him.
So this is one of the sections. This final section is basically the only one we actually touched, and we had to make it fit Fallout 4. So instead of your mom, you have your spouse in there.
Yeah, that's a cool touch.
Cool.
Obviously rework these messages, but that was easy, just a couple words. And then this section features some other familiar faces.
Someone else had a good question. In terms of creepy things, is there a connection between the swamp folk and Lovecraftian stuff and Blackhall, or is it just everything that just kind of happens to be here? There's no connection between them.
I mean, yeah, Joel, you can touch on that. It's just different creepy elements. I feel like it just works for the area.
I mean, there's a lot of things that people think we're referencing. Like, there's actually like not Deliverance. It's not Hills Have Eyes. Like there's some vibes. Like I've literally never seen those movies, right? But the Lovecraft stuff, there's definitely like an inspiration, but it's not a reference.
Yeah.
So like, you know, it's not directly Love Holly stuff. But we're definitely thinking about like Innsmouth and all that stuff. Like the Kriv Bekna is the Necronomicon, basically.
I mean, that one's more of a direct reference than the Point Lookout stuff, because that was the Dunwich building after all.
Yeah.
Whereas the Kriv Bekna, that's like totally made up word.
Yeah, but the Kriv Bekna didn't exist until Point Lookout, right?
Yeah. I just mean like the name of the Dunwich building is a direct Lovecraft reference.
Oh, yeah, that is reference.
Is it just, is the Kriv Bekna is it just a nonsense word, or is it like a
Joel
secret
made that
meeting?
up, and I was like, how do you say it?
Yeah, I said, don't worry, we'll come up with something better later.
It's a placeholder made permanent.
Yeah. Never do that on games. It will always shift.
Yeah.
So we had to use like text to speech for a lot of our development while we were making it. And so I'll never hear Kriv Bekna the same, because our text to speech always pronounced it Krivbini. So that's how it is pronounced as far as I'm concerned.
Good old robo voice.
Yeah.
We are used to that for sure.
So there's our lovely scar. And then Ken, I'm not
so
sure.
effing pleased with this.
And Ken, I'm not sure how much time we have, but we could go to, as we were talking about before, the mansion explosion sequence if you like.
Yeah, we can go right to that.
So skip ahead to that.
The locals also have a dance animation. Where did that come from?
In a word, Jeff, God, we had the most ratchet mocap situation during Point Lookout, right? Like we had a very weird architectural like corner, like this ugly bump in the hallway, and we had some very outdated mocap tech there that we had sort of like rigged together, and we convinced Jeff Brown, who's level designer, who's a lead LD on Skyrim. We convinced him, because he's this tall guy, right? So he's kind of like had the right proportions. Said like, all right, we're gonna strap some mocap ping pongs on you, and we just want you to do a hoedown. And we just had him dancing for like 45 minutes in the corner of the studio. And that knee slapper, that was gold. So that went straight in with some cleanup.
Trust us, Jeff. This is important.
How many takes did you force him to do?
He was there for a while. Yeah, in fact, that's probably why Velma's got cut, because we kept Jeff too long on the mocap stage.
I don't even think most people realize that's there because we don't even turn that on until like after you beat the main quest, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, they're out like at a camp over right to like the east of the
Yeah, right near the start.
I have a save set up where we can see that as well.
We should do that. You also wanted to show us Plix Safari, which we were going to talk about here too.
Yeah, we'll have a look at Plix, which Joel is pretty familiar with.
Oh yeah.
Oh, also another thing that I thought was always hilarious that I knew even before I started modding is that we do this. That's a little too slow, sorry. So in this building, there it is. There's a Pulowski shelter where the brain is.
Yep.
And he's invisible normally, but for us he isn't, but he's wearing our swimsuit instead. And even though we didn't like need him there for the purposes of like making him speak to the player, we did it just because we thought it was funny. So
yeah, I think that's one of those interesting behind the scenes thing. It's like, hey, you need a character actually there to talk to you because otherwise there's no way for that to actually occur.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was like before talking activators worked properly. Yeah, I think we forced a lot of tool support by doing things in the worst possible way before it was properly supported.
Someone
Fine,
gets
I'll write some
so
code.
mad.
My all-time favorite is how you got the tram to work in Fallout 3 by just putting a hat on your head.
I mean, the ferry to Point Lookout's not that different, right?
Yeah, it's like the same concept. We just knew how to actually do it already, so it wasn't a new hack at that point.
Yeah, I was honestly trying to remember if Broken Steel did it first or if it was Point Lookout.
I mean, Broken Steel was earlier, so.
In the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip these guys
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of just fighting all of them.
Oh yeah.
And this reminds me that, 76 gets a lot of credit for being like pretty accurate to West Virginia and stuff. But the coverage we got on Point Lookout, there's one of like a local newspaper there that we saw about how it's very not accurate because it is in no way representative of that region. And even the actual geography is not accurate. And we modified it to suit our needs. We mostly thought that the name was cool and the general pointy shape of that peninsula was cool.
Yeah, and there's a few things that are kind of nods, but I'll tell you, I remember
Very
going to
loose.
Jeff Gardner's office, or Jeff Gardner and I used somebody's office to take that interview. And it was the most passive-aggressive interview I've ever. And I'm a video game developer, right? Like, I have never had somebody with such a bone to pick as that like regional non-video game journalist who was writing for like whatever the Point Lookout, register.
So here coming up is personally my favorite sequence.
Yes.
And our lead designer did a fantastic job with this, but I'm going to take some credit because I pestered him into making it perfect. So
That is awesome.
so even the aviary glows red hot, which not many people may know, because we know that it gets bent, but not many people might know that it glows because of the heat. And then he also recreated this like falling debris effect, which I'm really happy with how he did it.
Yeah, that
He did a
looks
fantastic
awesome.
job.
Definitely very spot on. It's very cool.
Oh, I'm glad to hear. And then Ken, let me know if we're strapped for time or anything, because I'll just keep going if that's okay.
Yeah, we got. I think Nate has to poke off here in. I think he said 15 minutes. 20 minutes?
Yeah, play it by ear.
Okay.
All right. So spoiler alert, Desmond doesn't die there.
We were talking about the Dark Heart of Blackwall, which the whole Lovecraftian reference is one of my favorites. The original design and outline of that, it seems like it changed late in development, and some of the lines were cut or re-recorded. Do you happen to remember why that quest was changed?
Maybe Joel remembers because I don't.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm racking my brain actually. Because the Dark Heart, so Black Hall it wasn't Eric. It was separate from this stuff. It was right. Um, is that Fred? Was that one?
It was probably Fred.
It's probably Fred.
Yeah.
Some like more ambitious plans for trying to like branch it. Honestly, like if I went back and I looked at those lines, I'm like, oh, it was this. But I think that was one where we kind of got a little bit big for our britches in terms of how I wanted the wrap up to be. And I think we pulled it back a little.
Yeah, because I think I remember that it's something to the effect of like, because the final version is basically Obadiah's like the bad guy, and then Marcel's the good guy, and that's kind of your choice there. But I think in the cut version, there's like illusions that like Obadiah is like trying to break the family curse or some such, and then like you have a choice of like letting him sacrifice himself and consume the book, or I forget what the alternate path is, but it's something to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, there's like even a little stuff with Marcella, because I think Point Lookout's where we invented the Abbey of the Road, which is just like this sort of implied, like it, and I think that's what we wanted to do with even like the Great Game with Desmond and all that. Like we wanted to imply a grander sort of universe, but not always like get into the details. So it's hard to remember how many of those things were like sort of shoulder checks that we put in, you know, to like put in little Kessel runs, and how much of that were like, no, like we actually were going to pull on that thread a bit harder, and we just cut.
Shout out
I wish I had a better answer.
to Wes Johnson in chat, who said, thanks guys for all you did on the original and on this version, and thank you for doing this.
Happy to do it, Wes.
Yeah, no problem. It's super cool to see.
I love this lighthouse too. Speaking of relighting this lighthouse, did that pop into your head as part of the Mothman quest in 76? Or is it just like a happy coincidence that to summon him you just kind of light it?
Lighthouses just are good landmarks.
Yeah.
Never really crossed my mind, I guess. 76, like that one's just based on like a real thing, which, you know, people were convinced I was like full of crap when I had put that in because it's landlocked.
Yeah, we had done a dev dive with Ferret, and he was talking about that meeting, and he's like, we can't, what are you talking? And you're like, well, look here. And he's like, okay.
I think we did move it slightly so it wasn't quite as visible when you started the game, though. That was like one concession.
We can take a quick detour, and actually I have the bulb, so we can actually go install that real quick.
Oh, sweet.
The way that bulb works too, that was another LOD explosion to get the beam going around.
Oh.
Yeah, also explosion, right? The only way to do moving objects.
Mm-hmm.
The Velvet Curtain quest is, that one too is one of the most unique quests in any Fallout DLC that we've seen, where you go on like a traditional James Bond-esque kind of spy mission with the spy glasses and everything. Was that in just James Bond inspired, or had you wanted to do like a real honest to God spy quest for a while, and this was just a good place to do it?
Yeah, I mean, so there were a couple of, like, first there was sort of the spycraft Desmond and everything out here, but the other was I was really interested in ways to do quests, so like in general for Bethesda games, ways to do quests that didn't rely as much on like dialogue vending machines. Like I didn't want to put a bunch of NPCs just talked at you, which is like a very broad criticism of quest design in general. And so that was really focused on like, can we do a bunch of dead drops, right? And so dead drops and spycraft just really fit well. And so that was the idea, is like, can we create this sort of like Cold War style intrigue throughout the location without necessarily having to do a bunch of like walk and talk with NPCs.
Another cool tidbit about that quest is the dead spy in that quest, Wan Yang. That's actually my wife's name.
Oh, no way.
So, and the spy nickname, I just asked her, like, hey, if you were a spy, what would your spy nickname be? And then so we we snuck that in.
That's
So
awesome.
it's like, yeah, you're a dead corpse in a Fallout game.
I think Ashley Cheng is also one of the names in the crematorium.
Oh
I forget
yeah.
what it's called.
Yeah, studio director.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to know if that was a kindness or a dig. It's hard to say.
Wish
Yeah.
you were here. Yeah, don't put that.
It's always like a little bit of a mixed memorial, right? Like, yeah, I mean, like Mama Dolce's is based on someone in my life, and like, so what did you do to memorialize me? Oh, it's like a rotten food factory full of scumbags.
Oh, great.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
I wonder what's going to happen here when I hit this button.
Yeah, it was always.
Love this battle. The plan here for Calvert's lab also changed a little bit. So there was when we get in there, there's a platform. So it looks like you originally intended to fall and drop you down underneath Calvert, and then you kind of fight your way back up, but that was changed. Was it just the falling mechanics of that, or for another reason maybe?
It's technically to pull off. Like we wanted to sort of structure that. I do think I remember working with the level designer who did most of the script. Teachable moment of like trying to and I think we just pulled it back because like it wasn't quite working, and like it's okay to let the player have a little more freedom how they approach the fight.
That fried turkey, why was I'm Desmond backup line voiced? I mean, there was a line that was cut that's called I'm Desmond?
No, so basically, in Fallout 3, if you like kind of sequence break and you don't go through the quests correctly, like you just COC into the cell or some such, Desmond's default line is he just says, I'm Desmond.
Okay.
That's his like default hello. And we just got a kick out of that when we were developing.
I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I have a theory. So when we first started on Lookout, we didn't have the quest designer, right? So like Fred and Eric, who I mentioned, they weren't on it yet. And so at the very beginning, one of our level designers had to do a bunch of dialogue placeholder stuff, like throughout the mansion sequence too, like wherever like you were being spoken to. That was just like placed in. I remember the level designer was like, I'm not a writer. I don't know how to write good lines. I'm like, just write something very functional, right? Like I am being shot at, or go through this door. I'm Desmond. I'm almost certain that's where it came from. It's just a placeholder line. It's like, what do you need the player to learn? Just that this is Desmond. Okay, just put a line that says I'm Desmond. It'll get changed. Don't.
And it shifts.
Yeah.
Well, you can't actually see that line ever
Oh,
without like abusing console commands and such. So,
That's funny.
but we just thought that one was funny.
Desmond in here also makes vague references to traveling north in pursuit of other rivals. Did you guys ever throw around ideas of what those adventures might look like, or was there maybe a plan to use Desmond in the future?
No, I think we just really like again, sort of the Kessel Run thing, right? Like we liked kind of leaving some open hooks that we could always come back and like get your imagination on what might else happen. And like if we ever came back to these characters, cool. If we didn't, at least it felt like they implied, more, right, than just like they only exist to fulfill your fantasy for this DLC.
Yeah, because Desmond's such a badass character.
I love how weird this got. I can't believe we got away with the brain in the jar and all this.
I mean, it's like a nod to classic sci-fi, so I think that's like a perfect fit for
Oh,
Fallout.
very much so, yeah.
I was curious. We never actually learned Calvert's first name. Did you have one in development? Because there's not even references to his first name in the GEC either.
I don't think so. I mean, I know the Calvert name came to like imply connection to Maryland history, right? Like Calvert is like an old colonial. I'd have to Wikipedia to remember, but so that's where the Calvert name came from. I think we just wanted to kind of imply that there was like an old family like lineage that was tied to the region, but I don't know if we ever actually gave Calvert a first name.
Yeah, I don't remember one.
Because that was like the
Right.
whole statecraft thing, right? Like these guys conflict, they just have grown up in 200 years.
So I think now it's choice time. So who are we killing? It's up to you guys.
Nate and Joel should decide.
I mean, there's two of us, so if we say the same thing, though, I'm gonna go with Desmond.
Oh, so I was going to go with Covert. So
Oh no!
See, yeah, we need a tiebreaker.
All right, Ken, it's your vote.
All right, full chaos mode because I never killed Desmond. Let's kill Desmond.
All right. Sorry, Desmond. And I know that
Disappointed
nothing will
Death
go
Rattle.
wrong here for sure.
The inevitable double cross. This is so classic B movie right here. This is all.
I think you were trying to the animator when we were making this name.
Oh, what was that? You cut out a little bit.
Oh, I think you kept trying to reanimate while we were making this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of stuff like that. The whole thing is pulp. Like even the choice of font is supposed to be like a pulp comic. We
Yeah.
even had like a fake cover that we made at some point. But then it was like, well, that doesn't actually make any sense. Why would there be a fake comic book cover of Point Lookout, which is now? It's like this circle of time. Like Huber's comic isn't gonna make a Point Lookout comic. So we just kept the font.
Rip.
Yeah, so that's the main quest. The Cliff Notes version of the main quest.
Yeah. Speed ran.
Now, what about
Super cool.
so Plick Safari is pretty important. Should we? Do you have a load point up for that we could take a quick look?
I don't, but I can take us there really
Yeah.
easily.
Let's go. I can't believe you know that off the top of your head.
I've been in every one of these cells far too many times, so
Yeah. Respect a walking COC library.
So Plick Safari, who created Plick Safari, and more importantly, who voices Plick?
Yeah. This is for better or worse, this is all me. I really wanted to do this. This was a little bit of a pet project for me on the side. So like, I did all the scripting and set up the cell, but Christ, this line. So yeah, I wrote this character, and I remember like we were debating whether or not like we were going to do it or if we could support it and this, that, and the other thing. And so it was like a little bit of an open question. And, again, it was a short project. We have this thing in, and we get to the voice sessions, and the voice actor comes into studio and is sitting with the audio engineer and voice director and does all the lines for the for Desmond, right? So like basically comes in and does ghoul voice type. And Plick was originally meant to be voiced by the same actor. And a lot of times the direction you'll give the actor is like, hey, just like do this character with like, like a Southern accent. So like, even though it's the same voice type, they'll put an inflection on it. So all of Plick's lines were on a few sheets of the script. And those sheets just like didn't make it into the booth. So like the day wraps up and like the voice recording is finished and, the actor goes about, their life. And we get the VO lines back and it's like, well, we don't have anything for Plick and we don't have pickups, right? The pickups is a term for when you have voice actor come back. So I went in the booth and it's awful. Like the original lines for this are me just doing like my best impression of Grover wishing he had Robitussin, right? Just bad ghoul voice acting. But hey, it made it in and I'm happy it's there. Because we didn't have a lot of these types of arena fights, so just thought it'd be fun to do.
Had you ever, until this point, done voice acting in any of the previous games? Or is this like this was your first, like, okay, here I go, voice acting, I guess?
I mean, nothing that shipped. Like, I was one of the folks who would do a lot of placeholder before we had Robo Voice.
Yeah.
So I was like, I understood how it worked. Like, I understood I'd sit with Mark and we'd go through and like, I knew how to do takes. but I'm not a professional voice actor by any stretch of the imagination. So I honestly, like, we probably violated a union rule somewhere, DLC. So I guess don't tell. Yeah, purely out of desperation.
Yeah, because I mean, the alternative was going to be like cut the quests. Basically, it doesn't work without the voice, so kind of had to. Yeah, and with those short timelines on DLC, also even getting voice and dialogue in at all is a pain because you have to lock it off earlier than the rest of the content in time to actually get that voice recording done, which is not easy when it's that short of a project.
Yeah, Mouse Clark, that's what Joel just mentioned. So Plick is credited to Jeff Baker, who was supposed to record it that day. We hung out with Jeff Baker a few days ago there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if I was credited, that would be the violation of union rule.
Oh yeah.
It's probably safe 13 years later to tell the story, but
oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I also wanted to mention our lead artist, as I become a broken record. He also recreated the Fallout 3 ghouls and the swamp ghouls as well.
Yeah, they look so good.
Yeah, I love
Super
them.
cool.
Let me find the last one. There we go. Should be it.
Yeah, good job hanging on. That was not easy.
Yeah, they were coming everywhere. Yeah, I think when we were developing this, we had some issues where like the spawns weren't capped correctly, so you could just have hundreds of ghouls.
Oh no.
So
always happens.
Yeah, I could definitely fall on that sword because I did all the original scripting. This is 100% my pet project. God, these lines stink, though. I'm so sorry you guys had to.
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. I think you did a good job. They thought you were Jeff Baker after all, so. And then I think everyone does this after this quest. Because
why
I need
not,
that money.
Right? I honestly did that, yeah.
Look, you don't sit in a chair in a Fallout game and not get your head blown off. You just right up behind.
You just don't.
And then of course the journal.
Was it in the original game? You can read that and get a bonus?
Yep.
Yeah, I am today years old. I never bothered to go check his stuff.
I mean, I have a fun fact. I don't know if you guys remember this or know about it. You probably do. But that journal in Fallout 3 is actually bugged because the perk isn't set up correctly. Or it's
oh, okay.
I forget exactly what was wrong with it, but basically instead of giving you a damage bonus against ghouls, it gives you a damage bonus against just everything. So
whoopsie.
Yeah,
everyone loves
I
that
screwed
perk
it up
for that reason.
That's okay. Super mutants were tough in 3, okay?
But yeah, our version, we fixed that because we felt like that probably should. You guys would have wanted that fixed, we felt, so.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the intention. And I'm like 100% sure that was my screw up that you fixed, so thank you.
Yeah, so sorry I keep referencing the time, but I don't know how much more time we have, but if we want to see some more stuff, I'm glad to show it.
I have to head out.
Yeah.
Shortly.
All right.
But what, so apart from maybe adding more content, if you guys were building Point Lookout today with the same team, was there anything that you would have done differently now, 13 years later, looking back on it?
The team pulled off so much,
Ideally, a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Because it is fairly compressed. But again, we had 4 months. So it was like that was the most we could do. And even arguing to do an open world space like that was pushing it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those. I don't have the version of this that keeps him awake at night. all the other like sort of removed location DLCs to just make it more tightly integrated with the world. Because you come here, you spend whatever, a few hours, play the content, and that was what always felt like sort of the tragedy in going just a little bit too onerous, right? And we did a lot of work to make this relatively viable. Range for point lookout is quite broad, so there's a bunch of I would love to find a solution for that, because again, the team did such a good job and more time in.
Yeah, and it's until you guys told me before this, I never came back here, so I didn't know that after the main quest here, there are some things that change. And Alex, what are some of the things that actually change?
Well, so we're coming up on one of them. We made reference to this before, but let's see if I can do it without getting spotted. Oh, they're there. They've loaded in. So they should... I hope I didn't jinx it, but we will use the power of console commands.
And in doubt, cheat.
Exactly. Yeah, so... Oh, only 2 of them want to dance today, but...
That is amazing.
If I remember this right, my other favorite part is no one's actually playing instruments, right? So you just hear like this slapping.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
Show
That's
some show before you go away from that though. Head back there. Just show, because I want people to really see the characters that you guys recreated here in Fallout 4. Is some really beautiful character work. Like zoom in on those bad boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's absolutely spectacular work.
Yeah, that's our lead artist, as I keep referencing Turkey. He is fantastic, and
well done, Turkey.
He works like a madman. So he made all these. I don't think it took him terribly long either. He works overtime. So he goes crazy.
Yeah, those are all like really spot on. I'm super impressed.
Yeah, we were really happy with how they turned out.
Face, it's like it's one of those things where like it feels like it adds new details to take advantage of the resolution.
Yeah, like
so
look at that.
Yeah.
It's so gross.
So good.
I had to pull up all the original reference for all this stuff. That was some interesting Google searches.
Yeah, you're talking about that a little bit too. So I'm going to switch us back to like the main view here. Back to gallery. There we go. So as far as finding some visual inspirations for those, Nate, what are some of the sources that you looked at? Because they're pretty creepy looking.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just various mutations and deformities and stuff. You have to get pretty gross reference sometimes when you're working on things in games, and then all that gets sent over the people to do the concept art.
Wes Johnson just said in chat, DNA runs strong in that family.
Well, it's like all one family. Keep it in the family, right?
That's right.
It's easy to remember a song where there's only one note.
Well, thank you both very, very much, and thank you, Alex, for showing this off. Before we go, we'll talk a little about what you guys are going on now. But everyone, so Fallout 4 Point Lookout is available on PC only. It's up on the Nexus. Go download it, play the hell out of it, and definitely cheer on, support, find the Discord. The Capital 4 Wasteland team is doing the good Lord's work here in preserving what for me was my entrance into Fallout. Fallout 3 holds a really special place in my heart, and it's great to see it brought forward into Fallout 4 and people still playing it. Joel, so what are you working on now in your post Fallout life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm living that indie life. So I'm the studio director for a small indie studio up here in Toronto called Purkeypile Games, who folks might know from Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery and Below, Might Magic Clash of Heroes, Super Time Force. So yeah, I mean, like we've been supporting a game called Grindstone, which is a great, color matching puzzle battle game. Just came out on Steam yesterday or the day before. Yesterday, yeah, just came out on Steam. So yeah, just like really awesome to support that. I also want to say like thanks so much to the Point. So appreciate y'all.
Nate, what have you been doing? You've been very, very busy, sir.
Yeah, I'm also indie now. So doing the solo indie thing, and I'm making my own indie game called The Axis Unseen, where you hunt monsters from folklore. And I'm building the whole thing in Unreal Engine 5 too, which has been really fun to work with. And it has a heavy metal soundtrack done by one of my favorite like metal artists ever, Clifford Meyer, who was in ISIS and Red Sparrows.
Awesome. Yeah, it's up on Steam. So if you look for The Axis Unseen, please do him a favor and wishlist it on Steam. It's you'll be able to see some of the behind the scenes in the trailer. The game looks very good. And Alex, what's next on the docket for your team?
Well, nothing I'm 100% ready to quite share yet, but we're chugging away, plucking away at that massive beast that is Fallout 3. So
Awesome.
hoping to finish that sooner than later, and yeah, we're just chugging away.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you all very much for tuned in for this. Shout out to the Capital Wasteland team and all of the work that you're doing. We still have days more of content to go. We have quite a few things coming up here. We've got Tequila Talk that Elgato Pub is doing on Friday night with the who's who of voice acting. I'll be doing a Fallout 76 Let's Play panel with some of those voice actors. On Thursday, Wes Johnson is going to be playing some old school tabletop RPG with Modifius Games with Craig Seckler, the voice actor, playing the new Skyrim tabletop RPG game that isn't out yet, but honestly is spectacularly realized. So definitely stick around for that. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the wasteland. Oh.